Hey there, Solar Warriors. I'm Nico Johnson, and this is Suncast. Each week, I pull back the veil on the life and business insights of cleantech entrepreneurs building the most noble and impactful companies of our time. I hope what you learn from this conversation is a catalyst for your own growth. So thanks for tuning in, and welcome to our tribe. Hey, welcome to a new week, Solar Warrior. Here we go. This is 2 for Tuesday. Whether that's a tactical Tuesday or just content from one of our many live events like SPI Podcast Lounge, this is going to be a short form conversation, typically with subject matter experts designed to give you the practical tools, tips, and advice for building your solar business or career. And grow with us here on Suncast, as I know you will. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us again and level up your game. In this particular case, what you are about to hear is content from our Career Summit. Our Career Summit was a fantastic series of conversations all about not only how to find your dream job, the perfect opportunity to transition into clean energy as a career, but also how as an industry we can improve the concepts of hiring with justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We had some amazing conversations around that, and you're about to hear one of those right now. You can always find all of the resources and learn more about this episode over on the blog at mysuncast.com. For now, get ready to tune up your skills, Solar Warrior, as we tune in to another powerful conversation here on Suncast. This session is called Challenging the Status Quo, C-Suite Examples of D&I Leadership. My name is Nico Johnson, and I'm so glad to have you here for another conversation. This one, a sensitive look into how leaders in the industry are thinking about what's happening inside of their own organizations as founders. What are the conversations they're having with themselves, with their staff? How are they striving to be leaders in the industry, but also leaders among their own team? Today, I'm going to be joined by two gentlemen that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I'm going to introduce them in just one moment. And I wanted to say thank you, first and foremost, to LightSource BP for being our title sponsor and helping bring this conference, this summit to life, supporting us so that you all can join here and enjoy this content. Also, thanks to Solaris Global as our networking sponsor, Sol Systems, and many other companies who have come along as industry partners, media partners, and generally supporters, helping us bring this to life. We at Suncast Media we are the guiding voice in solar industry, as it were. We're trying to create a platform and a discussion around diversity, equity, and inclusion, how it relates to your hiring process, how it relates to your own personal career growth. And we are thankful that you have jumped in to join us in this discussion. Today, day one, we're talking about why D&I matters, and more than ever before. Tomorrow, we'll be focused on how, if you're looking at a career transition, you can start and come along through the journey to enjoy a career as Matt and Mike and myself and Glenda and our team have done for the last decade plus. If you are watching on LinkedIn or Twitter, I would encourage you to go over to suncastcareersummit.com and register. There you can get access to our private community. You can save all of these sessions to your calendar. We've got a free access, which is interviews only. We've got all access, which is interviews, networking sessions, and workshops. And then we've got our Evergreen Pass, which gives you all of that, plus access to the replays into perpetuity, as well as our community of industry insiders and inner circle of folks that will help you along your career journey or help you address questions with regard to hiring and incorporating things like equity, inclusion, and diversity into your business as a whole. That community is free to join as a registrant to the Suncast Career Summit. So I would encourage you to go check that out. Today's guests for this session, Matt and Mike, are two well-respected founders and CEOs. Matt Hankey is the president and CEO of New Energy Equity. Under his leadership, New Energy Equity has installed more than 250 megawatts of renewables in 11 different states, totaling over 500,000 in total transactions. And they've been ranked by Solar Power World and Inc. magazine as top rated and fastest growing companies in our field. Mike Healy, CEO of New Columbia Solar, also in the Washington, D.C. area, has been a fervent leader and developer of solar policy throughout the Mid-Atlantic region, having been influential in the development, design, and advocacy of the D.C. and Maryland RPS programs. Prior to New Columbia, he was the founder and partner of Nextility. Those of you who've been around for a while might recognize Nextility and Connect DER. He has a proven track record of developing strategy, tactics, and executing on the business of driving renewables into reality for more than a decade now. He's also served as treasurer for SEIA, our nationwide trade association, and has been instrumental in the Maryland, Virginia MDV SEIA as well. So I want to welcome Matt and Mike to the stage. Gentlemen, so great to have you today.
Nico, thanks for having us.
Hey, Nico.
Hey, good to see you again. And I'm really encouraged by what I'm going to call the courage for you guys to stand on stage on a day where you are sharing the stage with, you and I. We're the three lone men sharing the stage with diverse women of many backgrounds about a topic that, as the majority, we are white men in our industry, we have become more and more aware of the need to address, not only within our own culture, but broadly within our industry. How are we approaching hiring? How are we approaching building our business and the access to the opportunity that we can afford ourselves, our neighbors, to join the fastest growing job creation vehicle in the United States for the last 5 years? Matt, you and I were talking a bit about the generally the statistics. I know that SEIA has spent a lot of time looking into the statistics around diversity and equity in our industry. Could you start by giving us a little bit of insight into what, as you've stepped into this journey with New Energy Equity as the CEO, what have you learned that sort of opened your eyes to the need for change within our industry?
Yeah, you bet. So, one of the big red flags for me personally in looking at this topic was I took a look at the Solar Foundation released what's called the Solar Census, and give you a couple stats from there. So first of all, the solar workforce is 73% white. Executive suite in solar is 88% white. And beyond that, it's 80% male, 20% female. In the solar industry, they estimate that a woman earns 74 cents for every dollar that a man does, and that's likely the same for the minority population, despite the fact that it wasn't released. These stats, while candidly frustrating and unacceptable, they do have a silver lining, at least in my mind. Number one, they were released, and we're talking about them. And right. Thanks, Nico, for providing your platform that you've worked so hard to set up to have that conversation, because that's where it starts. And then the second piece is, solar jobs, as you mentioned, have increased by 167% over the last decade. 250,000 jobs. COVID certainly had some impact on that, I'm sure. But 5,600 jobs were added between 2018 and 2019. So while companies have struggled, there's tremendous opportunity in this industry to be able to continue to grow the base and continue to try and do things that can help solve these issues. So that was, reading these stats, seeing these things was certainly an eye opener for me. In addition to many other things over the last couple months and since we founded the company 7 years ago. But these stats are in line with what I expected, unfortunately, and in line with what I think and New Energy Equity think needs to change. Yeah,
thanks for sharing that, Matt. Mike, you've been involved in the energy business for a lot longer than the solar business and are no stranger to an industry that by and large favors male predominance, not only at leadership, but at a tradesman level. You got your start in the coal industry. What brought you into the world of entrepreneurship and starting New Columbia Solar, having had a long established history in energy as a traditional energy company?
Yeah, thanks, Nico. And as Matt said, thanks for hosting this particular topic and this forum. This has been incredibly useful, not just this forum, but many other forums that have been going on as of late and previously on this particular topic. It's how I've learned a tremendous amount is forums like this. So thank you for that. I think you're referencing my, I started out working for Senator Rockefeller in West Virginia, and most of my interaction at that point in time was with the coal industry. And that was absolutely a male, white dominated industry. And I was lucky enough to get involved with wind developers that became interested in West Virginia. And I was kind of, young and hungry and wanted to get things done. And really was energetic to get involved in this wind thing. And, it wasn't really a West Virginia thing at that point in time. So I was given the opportunity by the senator's office to pursue that. And that was my foray into renewables. And after a little bit of time kind of doing that, I wanted to get my hands dirty, get out of government. And I ran into Alison Archambault, who's doing a lot of great work in Haiti right now, and Tony Clifford, formerly the CEO over at Standard Solar, and through those relationships, got involved in solar energy back in 2007, I guess, and have been involved ever since. And after a little while of learning the game and spending some time with with industry experts at such an early stage, I always credit, I always felt like I was at the right place at the right time, which I think so much of this conversation, frankly, is. Mm-hmm. I was at the right place at the right time to learn from folks like Tony, who Standard Solar, it was 5 people at the time. Jigger Shaw, who had just exited from SunEdison and frankly was looking for somebody to mentor. And, I was probably one of 10 people that, had, at that point in time, one of many who he was talking to, and just got an opportunity early on to interact with these folks and learn and really listen to their experiences. And from there, started a company called Skyline Innovations, which became Nextility. So, yeah,
thank you for sharing that. I find it fascinating, and it is part of the narrative that we'll unpack a bit today, hopefully more than a bit. But I find it fascinating how the story that many of the folks I talk to is, I met a guy like Tony Clifford. He took me in and mentored me. Jigger and others gave me advice. And ultimately, it paints back to, at some point, having access to these people, right? I'll note, which I hadn't quite realized. I don't think I connected the dots yet, that both of you got your start at Standard Solar. Tony and his organization have spawned a dozen or more companies and more than probably 100 industry executives. So it's not all that surprising. I do want to say in the outset here, before we get too deep in the topic, for those who might still be watching, thank you, and thinking from a skeptical angle, like, here's 2 white men, what am I going to learn from this? I don't want to position this conversation today as though Matt and Mike have got anything figured out. What I want to position is a conversation around exactly how they don't have it figured out, but they're still digging their heels in as the CEO and taking the responsibility to be the first person to raise their hand and say, we've got a problem. Matt, and our what sparked the idea for us to even have this session was a conversation I had with you where you very courageously posted a letter about how you personally have been impacted and feel about the things happening in one of the states where you have an incredible amount of development, a lot of partners. Can you unpack for me and for the rest of us the story of when you started to get a sense that things weren't quite right internally? There was a problem that you needed to think about and address.
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, let me start off with whether it's a proclamation, a confession, whatever it may be. And I know through conversations with Mike Healy, who I know well, he shares the same thought. But preface the conversation with the acknowledgement that I don't have answers on these topics. And actually, in no way am I even qualified to discuss the best approach of these issues. I grew up with privileges personally that have shielded me from almost every single reality that those of different backgrounds, color, and sex face daily. And through the conversations with Nico, as I was struggling with how to address this as a company, I struggled with whether I was the right person to talk about something today. And through encouragement of Nico, as well as some of our employees, I realized that my previous silence on the topic and unwillingness to stand up were actually the issue. The fact that I was unwilling to put myself in an uncomfortable position is part of the issue. And as an individual who's been extremely blessed with an opportunity to lead an organization making such a positive change, we push out clean energy to the masses. We're doing our best to focus and improve on the situation, but I encourage everybody to stay hopeful and remain committed as we are to changing this situation and always open to advice as to how we can do this better. And so, New Energy Equity has really been focused on this issue since we started the company 7 years ago. I just am a firm believer in the fact that different perspectives coming from different backgrounds is the way that you can most successfully make every decision that you go through as a company. And so we've been really focused on this since day one, but I'd also be lying if I said that the events in late May in one of our home markets of Minnesota wasn't shaking us to the core and highlighting the fact that the industry is not doing enough. New Energy Equity wasn't doing enough. And beyond that, I personally wasn't doing enough in order to help solve the situation. So really the moment for me, I was actually on the phone with one of our very good partners, Jamie Burrell from IPS Development in Minneapolis. And Jamie had to abruptly get off the phone because he was installing a project for Target at the time. And there was a mass of protesters that were outside of that location. And he had to evacuate staff from the roof, pull down scaffolding. And make sure that those lives were safe. And so, what that really, pushed in me was the goal to address this with the company and make sure that we created a situation internally at our company, which is what we could control at that moment, not focused on externally yet, but internally for a few days, and make sure that all of our employees, partners, and customers felt safe. That was the biggest piece for us. Make our stance on these issues clear, and rededicate our efforts towards pushing along positive change. And so that's what we posted the letter on the website. It's a very small thing that doesn't actually mean anything unless we do anything. And so now we're focused, 4 months later, on making sure that we continue the conversation, continue to have the uncomfortable conversation, and continue to push along that change that we're looking for.
Yeah. I think Matt just hit the nail on the head a little bit with, uncomfortable conversation. It's a conversation that I have to say, a year ago, I don't know that I would have joined this, this conversation right now, because it does make people uncomfortable. But especially in light of the events of late, it has become more important than ever, I think, for white people as well as Black and brown. To speak out and to engage in this conversation. So much of, I think for so long, I, as a white person, kind of said, "Hey, I don't look at race. It's not something that it's not part of my decision-making process."
Yeah.
But that in itself isn't the answer either. And that's what I've come to learn. And I've learned so much so fast. But I actually, came to a realization of through some, New Columbia Solar was having some issues earlier this year, prior to everything going on right now. And what happened was, New Columbia Solar is based in the District of Columbia. We are, I always say we're change makers, right? We have the power to transform the way that our nation's capital is being powered. And that's a big thing in and of itself. But we need to be change makers in more than just clean energy, right? We need to be change makers in the stats that Matt was mentioning at the beginning of the podcast. And at the end of last year, at the end of 2019, one of New Columbia Solar's employees passed away, and through gun violence. Was a young man, 27 years old, and he started out as kind of a laborer out of a workforce development program that we work with the city, and was working his way up. And I had gone down. He testified with me at city council a few times, and then before we know it, he's gone. And just 2 months later, another young man had passed away as well, and he was 33 years old. And then 3 months after that, so a span of basically 5 months, another young man in his early 40s passed away, and I started to look at this and go, what is going on? And it was really something that, was impacting me, personally. I know it was impacting my team. I reached out and, with the help of my executive team, brought in people to talk and have a conversation, grief counseling, as a group and individually. And what I came to realize is that, my reality, like Matt had mentioned, I grew up in a world where it's not usual for someone in their 30s or 40s or even 50s to pass away. But what I came to understand through working with the grief counselors was that my reality, my world isn't necessarily the same as everybody else's, and you really have to understand people's backgrounds, and that, and I'm not saying it's right, because it's not, but that the reality that those young men lived in, they were all young African American men, was different than my reality. And now my intention is to, through New Columbia, is to be a change agent and try our best to provide resources, career opportunities, and an ability to, in some cases they were living in dangerous neighborhoods, and an ability to, maybe move away from dangerous neighborhoods if they'd like. So it's something that was a real wake-up call to me, that my reality is not everybody's reality. And right after this whole incident occurred is, when we started to see the protests in D.C. and in Minnesota, and the activity that we've seen of late. And that was really heavy charge, because we are right here in the middle of D.C. I was letting people on my team basically take off after 3:30, 4 o'clock, so they could go and do what they wanted to do what they felt they needed to do. And if some people couldn't work during that time, we let them have that time to do what they needed to do.
Yeah, as I mentioned, and you guys have courageously shared. There's a lot of unknown. A lot of that unknown starts internally. And Mike, I'm really, I'm encouraged by your willingness to share how you came to that realization that you didn't acknowledge the privilege that you lived in. And it was mostly because you hadn't really been confronted with it. To say, I didn't realize there were folks that don't believe they're going to make it to 40 or 50 years old, and they work on your team. I think that's a reality for, you're not alone there. It's a reality for many folks who've grown up in or who've been given a chance to be in safe environments, as Matt pointed out. With that backdrop, how have you guys, and I have to imagine, because I know that offline as well, you guys in real life are friends and colleagues and have shared experiences. How are you all seeking to get started? That's a conversation that we started this morning, and a lot of folks are asking, where do I start? How have you begun that journey internally?
Yeah. Listen, Nico, I will say, and I want to preface like Matt did, I am in no means qualified to speak on the subject. I've done things that have worked for me, and I'm continuing to try to learn what's best so that I can be a better leader for my team and be a better part of the community. And what I started with was real deep reflection. And to recognize my situation, and really start to understand whether I liked it or not. I have been a part of our culture, and which has socialized, the benefits, that I've received are ingrained in our culture. And I had to recognize that first, going back to that conversation that I met, the access that I had to solar executives at such an early stage,
yep.
Is part of that benefit, and recognizing that. And again, I really had to look at myself and say, okay, I need to now, it's not if I'm part of this process, am I in part of this, racial inequity divide? Most people want to say no. And that's what I would have said, earlier. I said, I'm not part of this. I don't define things through race. But now I've accepted that I am part of society. And therefore, what I need to do is not understand if, but move to how. How have I been benefited? And what can I do because of that to give back or bridge the gap so that other people can get some of those benefits, other people can get some of that access? And what is it that I can do based off of the reflection that I've had?
Yeah. And similar to Mike, so my background is I consider myself a doer. So I relatively quickly moved from reflection into, what is the solution? What can we do? And I realized that I was, probably falling flat personally in terms of what I can do in order to shape that and form it. And so, the company as a mission statement, came up with this as a group, which is our mission statement is to drive the evolution of clean energy through every project we touch, leaving behind a better world. And so that just gives you a perspective of the kind of people who are at this company who you want involved in that conversation. And so we, in May formed two groups, because once again, I'm a doer. I'm the guy that'll put my shoulder through a brick wall if I need to. And we formed two groups, an internal and an external group that was focused on internal hiring practices and external industry factors. And we had 12 members of the team. Our team at New Energy Equity is only 32 people. And so over a third of the team wanted to participate in these initiatives. And we wanted their involvement as well. And so the internal hiring practices group for us, we wanted to increase the amount of diverse candidates that we interviewed for positions within the company. We wanted to maintain our goal that we would hire the best candidate into each position, but we noted a specific issue even though we're in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area, we're in a hugely diverse populated area, and it's still challenging to find diverse sets of candidates for positions. And so, we needed to note some specific things, specifically around potential unconscious bias as it comes to interviewing candidates. And we're instituting some things like blind resume screening, participation from some of these internal hiring practices, individuals in candidacy for the company, and then also institute some training internally to make sure that we're providing, once again, a safe environment for both interviewers and, most importantly, employees. And then on the external side, it was really important for us. The ways we could think of that were most impactful is time and funding. And so we're currently going through. We're extremely lucky to be in an industry. We have a fantastic team that moves mountains on a daily basis and does very well. And so we're currently compiling a list of organizations that we can provide our time and funding to. That we hope to release that plan this month, so we can actually put our money where our mouth is, put our time where our mouth is, to try and make that industry change as well.
Hey, friend, thank you so much for tuning in to Suncast today. Just a couple of quick announcements. We'll be right back to the episode. First up is Mission Minded. If you have been listening, then surely you know that we have just recently launched a program I'm super proud of called Mission Minded. If you know someone who's been struggling to find that perfect fit in the clean energy industry, perhaps he or she has been a casualty of the massive downsizing in oil and gas recently, or perhaps just looking to level up in the industry where they've already found a home. I'd love it if you'd recommend them to us for our Mission Minded program. It's 12 weeks to the clean energy career you deserve. And if you do, there's a special gift that I have in store for you. That's right, we offer a 10% referral fee for every person who gets referred to our program. So if you know someone that might be a good fit, or maybe it's you, please do us a favor, send an email to nico@mysuncast.com, or you can just direct them to events.mysuncast.com/dreamjob. That's all in the show notes for this episode, so you can go check it out there as well at mysuncast.com. Here's thing 2. If you've been longing for a community outside of LinkedIn where you could plug in, network, learn, and grow, find people who are similarly passionate about different elements of clean energy as you, well, we're about to relaunch our Suncast Guild in our own private community, app and all. So if you'd like to get the deets on that, make sure you're signed up for our newsletter, which is where we always share the goods and inside information first to our tribe of Suncast insiders. I'll be sending out an email to subscribers about the Guild relaunch in the next week or 2, so be sure that you're subscribed. Or go check out the Become a Member area at mysuncast.com, where we have some details and you can get on the waiting list. Either way, I love that you're already a part of our tribe here as a listener. Thanks for that. Now back to the show.
You'd said to me in a previous conversation, and I like the way that you positioned it, Matt. You said the best perspective is a diverse perspective. It seems to me emblematic as you, as a leader, have supported that rather large percentage of the organization to take the time out necessary to think through the policies, to actually implement the policies, to put them in place. I feel like there's a lot of listening and understanding, as a commenter mentioned in the last session, but not a lot of implementation of policies without realizing that it might not work and we might need to pivot or modify things. Did you, and Mike, you as well, reach out for external resources for the kinds of diversity and inclusion and equity training that might be available? And what was your experience there, and how have you incorporated that?
Yeah, to be candid, that's probably been one of our biggest challenges, is that type of training, that type of resource since May has been in huge demand, and it's been challenging to get that resource internally. And it's sad to say that it's only been in demand at this level since May, but obviously there were some events that led to that happening. And so that has been one of the challenges. Once again, admitting the fact that I don't have the answers, I'm only doing the best that I can. It'd be great to have some outside perspectives, and we're willing to do that. So, shout out to anybody who's listening who has that perspective and has that training that can help us. We're actively looking and interviewing folks, but it's just super challenging to get a hold of people in order to help out on that front and further our internal goals. I think there's a ton of organizations we're looking at that can further the external goals, but the internal goals, we need some folks with experience to help us point out what's wrong and help us form our plans as to how we're going to solve them. Once again, knowing that we don't have the best ideas, we're just doing the best we can.
Yeah, we're slightly different in this respect, Nico, in that New Columbia again is based smack dab in the middle of DC, and I live here. Pretty much all my employees live here, and so from the get-go of our company, we always had the goal and the drive to make sure that our company looked like the community that we serve. So we've always been a diverse company from day one, something that I've been really proud of. But what I've learned is that that's not really good enough, right? And that's what I've come to learn throughout this year. Frankly, is last year I would have said, "Hey, we're doing all these things. We've always been diverse," and now what I'm kind of coming back to is, you got to go a little bit beyond that, and I'm not trying to say that everything. There's things that Matt's talking about that I'm jotting down, saying, "Hey, I got to do this too." But there's we've absolutely needed to create a safe space in our company. We've needed to recognize that our leadership team is white, and that's a conversation that we've needed to have. I'm proud to say that our statistics as an organization are higher than the statistics, almost twice as high as the statistics that Matt read at the beginning of the session. But you have to recognize that, and in order to get better, I absolutely needed to reach out to people that were outside of the organization, outside of solar, frankly, and through a mentor of mine, was able to get in touch with somebody who does do this diversity and equity training, and help start conversations with companies, and some large companies as well as small, and have really benefited from that, and has gotten some tools, and really started to turn this from kind of a framework into almost more of a process to say, this is how we're going to processize this, right? This is how we're going to, turn our company into something that is not only inclusive, is not only trying to, look like our community, but is trying to move give our employees equal opportunity to benefit themselves, recognizing again that some have had advantages that others have not. And so, one of the biggest things that we have looked at is this concept of career pathing, where we have gone to, we started to look around the room and realize that, no surprise, our frankly, our white and, Ivy School educated folks, we're reaching out to mentors, and we're working with senior level people in the company to understand how to get from one step to those conversations were already happening, and it's probably implicit in them, as frankly it's been implicit to me. I did not even realize that that's something that people don't really do, right? And that's a blind spot that I've had my career, and because I've always done it, it's been part of my career growth. But to recognize that that's not something that people are know about, let alone comfortable with, is something that, we wanted to change and something that we've been working to change. And so we've reached across. It doesn't matter what position you're in. It doesn't matter if you're, our senior finance lead, or you're, on the rooftop, hauling glass, as we say, right? We want to give everybody an opportunity to understand where they, to think about where they want to go and understand how to get there. And I will say one of the proudest things that I have been involved with, or one of the proudest things that about New Columbia Solar, is to work with some of those folks now that we've seen and really help them get to and see them. It's their work, it's not mine, but see the good work to show them, hey, this is the direction that you say you want to go, and this is how you get there. And then they go and do it. And we've now seen some project managers develop, some engineering resources develop, and it's been incredible to watch. And it's good for the company, frankly, as well.
Yeah, and Mike, we saw some similar things within our organization. And really what we tried to do in the last 2 years is provide educational support across the gamut for everybody, and then almost uncomfortably push that career furthering and that educational support through conversations with their managers, and allowing their managers to be judged on how many people take advantage of that, and pushing them into positions where they can really grow as an individual, and further their career significantly. It's an interesting balance between pushing and then also safe space, right? And this is a balance that we've struggled with as well, Matt, is like, we want to push as much of this onto people as possible. And in some instances, career is a great example. We've done that as well. And not just with career pathing, but on education and training, things along those lines across the team. But then also we've created a safe space, and I know you mentioned this as well, where basically resources on our drive where people can go to, they can educate themselves, they can put information that they find interesting onto the drive. But we're not forcing people to go and participate in that. It's really if they want to educate themselves, and if they feel like it's something that's right for them. So it's a balance between, from my perspective, it's really a balance between wanting to push things, but also at the same time making people feel safe and comfortable with what they're comfortable with. Yep.
I love the focus internally on training. Someone mentioned earlier, large organizations like Schneider have mandatory trainings. Richard Branson, one of my favorite quotes, he says, train people well enough they can leave, but treat them well enough they don't want to. And I think that what we find sometimes in leadership is a bit of fear that if you train people well enough they can leave, they will, because our industry tends to be one where people are trying to find people with the kinds of skills and experience that have that 5 years of experience, which is hard to get from outside of the industry. So I have a kind of a two-pronged question. You had mentioned an external focus on industry factors, Matt, and I know that you guys have had a lot of success bringing folks in from outside of the industry. I'd like to understand from your organization's perspective how you've been able to accomplish finding qualified candidates from outside of the industry that meet as well a diverse and equitable, inclusive lens. And then I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on how do we increase the level of mentorship, and especially with regard to, we've got thousands and thousands, 750,000, as Paula Glover just said, Black female STEM professionals, right? The notion that there aren't enough folks that qualify that aren't sort of white and higher education qualified is anathema. So how have you guys been able to adapt hiring strategies to look outside of our industry instead of that requiring someone to have 5 years of solar experience? And then how do you think about mentorship as a component to helping folks maybe even come out of the field into the office? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, from our perspective, really, since we started the company, we've been focused on getting the right folks in the right seats in order to drive company growth. And one of the ways that we've been successful in doing that is looking outside of the solar industry. So, part of the stats that I mentioned earlier, the industry does have a concern and a problem that needs to be solved, right? And so you can't do that within the solar industry. You have to look externally from the solar industry as well, and you have to have the insight and the thought process to think about it within the solar industry. And so we've been really successful with going outside the solar industry. We've hired folks from oil and gas. We've hired folks from other renewable energy technologies, telecom, real estate, financial services, other engineering and construction verticals. And it's really paid off multiple fold for the company. Number one, these folks are super talented and great at what they do. It's a more diverse set of candidates that we can see for the position. And on top of that, they are many times very cost effective as well, because the solar industry, when you look at supply and demand of employment, the minute you put 5 years of solar experience or 10 years of solar experience on a requirement, it's immediately going to constrain the number of folks that you can talk to, and likely make that position more expensive to fill for you as well. So, going to those other industries, at least for new energy equities, provide better perspectives, different perspectives. The solar industry, I think, has made leaps and bounds over the 11 years since I've been in it in terms of how we do things. However, there's other perspectives, which is what we're talking about here today, that are extremely helpful in driving future growth for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, Nico, I can say that, to speak to, your question about, people leaving and training and things along those lines. I got to look at that Branson quote, because that's kind of right up my alley. I once had somebody tell me that, the folks that leave, that go to start their own companies, and create a company that is similar in culture and really in culture to your own is basically the greatest form of flattery. And so, it's not something that I really dwell on, and I don't think that any leader really can. Matt and I probably both know who the people in our companies are that may go off and start their own company one day, and so But the point is to get everybody as effective as possible, and really, that quote by Branson is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if people are learning and engaged and they're really growing within the organization, they're not going to leave, because that's what people, really want, right? People want to continue to push themselves, and they want to continue to learn, and they want to continue to expand. And that's what I want to do, right? And that's what I think probably every leader really wants to do, is to be able to provide their people with an opportunity to continue to grow and expand, and become better at what they do, and learn new things and get good at those things as well. And so if you can do that, I think retention is going to be great, and people are going to be learning a ton at the same time. And that's what, we're trying to do at New Columbia Solar.
Yeah, I appreciate the insight as well on career pathing. It wasn't a term that I was familiar with, but it makes a lot of sense to me that there are folks who don't have that mentorship early in life, and so they strive to get a role. They get that role. It provides a modicum of financial security, but they don't have other influences that would guide them along a career path. I'm encouraged to hear that you guys are mapping out internally within your organizations career paths that folks can aspire to, that they can track to, and I presume that you guys are providing the kinds of resources that allow them to set out a plan. Is that a part of the management process now that is getting baked in? Is this you sit down with each individual, no matter where they are in the organization, and help them come up with a career plan?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we've done. And I do encourage people to do that, because the people, again, a lot of people that I would have thought, maybe doing this. And then I realized that there's a lot of people that weren't doing this. We're not doing that. We're not, they knew where they wanted to go. A lot of people, know where they want to, what they're aspiring for. Right. But they don't necessarily know that it's okay to sit down and talk with somebody about that. Right. That it's okay, maybe in the company to talk about that, because I think a lot of people view that as, oh, well, will this person think that I'm trying to get their job or something like that? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to put a stop to that, right away. And there's one person that comes to mind on my team, who's on our construction team. And this person wanted to move into a project management position. And, she knew where she wanted to go, but she didn't know to have the conversation to understand how to get there. And so she was so frustrated on our crew because, she wasn't getting to where she wanted to be. But then, she sat down and I sat down with her, and Nicole Marandino, our COO, sat down with her and really said, okay, this is where you want to go. Okay, this is what needs to happen. This is how we're going to work to get there. And I think it's a great transparent thing for everybody. We feel more comfortable about it because we understand, where they're trying to get to. And also, your employees feel more comfortable about it because your employees feel like, okay, now I have a pathway, and I'm not just showing up to a job every day. I'm showing up to get, from here to here to there. And that's, again, they're continuing to grow and benefit themselves.
Yeah. I feel like there is an element, and this happens at all levels in organization, of feeling like there is an upward mobility, and then maybe the corporate fear that if they strive for upward mobility, then they're going to naturally move out of the organization. And it's encouraging to see that you all are thinking about how do we grow as an organization such that there is enough room for multiple project managers, not how do we limit these folks and because we've only got room for one project manager. I wanted to mention a quick resource that became it was shared with me by the folks from Oregon SIA, and I think that maybe I don't know, maybe others in the audience would know this, but it's a resource that SIA has been incorporating into the training with the regional groups. But it's an organization called CEO Action. Have you guys heard of CEO Action? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll throw a banner up real quick here. They're billed as the largest CEO-driven business commitment to advance diversity and inclusion. CEOaction.com. So I know for sure. Matt's going to take a note. I love that. So I know for sure that this organization has helped numerous companies, like Blue Planet is one. Chris Johnson was telling me that this is an organization that helped them really structure their thinking. I wanted to share this resource because I feel like if 50% of our panel doesn't know about this resource, like this is what we want to be able to give to you guys and girls, to everyone in our organization or in our industry who's trying to think through this. My hope is that someone will actually share this video with their C-suite executives and say, this is inspiring. How can we do this at our organization? I would love to see that level of encouraging inspiration in the industry. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you guys on. I feel like we still have some limitations in place. I don't know what they are. So I would pose to you, what limitations still exist for you guys, and what do next steps look like, not just for your company, but for our industry?
Well, Nico, I want to say that, this is all a learning process, right? Mm-hmm. And, the best thing that I've been able to do is really get out and talk to people. And really get out and talk to people, beyond my safe space, right? And more importantly than talking, it's really listening, right? And understanding, people's backgrounds that are different than my own. And through these conversations, I've been able to find a lot of resources. Lately, I was talking to somebody at CELI, the Clean Energy Leaders Institute, yesterday. And there's a group called Empowering Diversity in Cleantech. I don't know much about the group, but what I was optimistic to see that was a group within Cleantech that is being formed, and people at CLI, have recognized it. And also at the same time, I've gone through a slew of resources. There's a great documentary on Amazon Prime called Bias that really looks at implicit biases. And we actually had our team, or some members of our team, we haven't done it across the full team yet, but take the Harvard implicit bias test, I think it's called, and or the implicit association test. Oops. And I don't know if I lost you guys there for a second, but yeah. So those are the types of things that has been really fascinating. To me, is just trying to learn more and more about the topic, and again, recognizing that we really don't have the answers, but the best thing that we can do is continue to try to learn and put into action the things that we as a leadership team, and also the things that our employees and our team members across New Columbia Solar feel are best for the company and enable us to continue to be on our mission of being change makers.
Well, and further to what Mike said, I don't know that there's been a tremendous amount of positives that have come out of the situations and our reality that we've been in for the last few months and then years before that. But, the one positive that I do see is the conversation is happening. And I've taken a tremendous amount of insight and feedback from conversations that I've had as well, private conversations that I had, after everything had happened and as we were trying to make sure that our employees felt safe and secure, given some of the racial unrest as well as COVID and everything else that was happening at one time. I took the opportunity, maybe one of my last opportunities, to call every single employee and get their perspective on what was going on, what we can do to change and what we can do to help. And those perspectives were extremely helpful. And then just the conversations on a broader level as well. So I participate in a great organization, Young Presidents Organization, YPO of Washington and Baltimore. And they've had seminars that you can listen into. They've brought national, international perspectives to things. And it's just a matter of, like I said earlier, grabbing as much information you can while also knowing that you're far from perfect and far from going to make the right decision every single time, and doing the best you can in order to further this mission that's important to us all.
Yeah, I also think it's important, Nico, to recognize that, I think, Matt, I think that the stat was, about 88% of, the leadership teams are white, right? And one thing that, conversation that we've started with the city is employment, and we can control obviously who we hire, and I think employment is a great thing, but also let's do mentorships for minorities that want to start their own businesses, right?
Yes.
And give them those advantages. Again, for me, especially when I started New Columbia, and really even the first time around, with Skyline, like, I didn't think twice about it. It was like, it's just something that I went and did. And that might have not always been the smartest thing in the world, but, the stage of life I was in, I just didn't think about it. And then when New Columbia came along, I didn't think about it either, but it was kind of ingrained in my nature and ingrained in a lot of, again, the mentors that I had around me at that point in time. And I want others to have that as well. And, there's, communities, from what I've seen, and I think one of the greatest experiences coming out of New Columbia is, communities really respond to the people that are in their community, and the people that are part of their community, and solar is so much of that, right? Solar at the end of the day is so much of a ground game, working closely with people in the communities. And that's something that I think that we need to really focus on is, yes, we need to do trainings for employees, and yes, we want to, we need to become more diverse, with the employees themselves, but also we need to give people the opportunity and the mentorship and to start and feel comfortable to start their own businesses and the know-how. And that's something that I hope to be participating in the future.
But it really starts, and I mean, it's why Mike and I are here, and it's why we're passionate about this topic. It really starts with being willing to have the conversation, and being willing to make the change. And I'm here to say we've done a pretty good job at the executive level and board level of having diverse folks at that level, but we still need to do better. And New Energy Equity is committed to do better on all levels. And we'll do everything within our resources in order to make sure that happens.
I'm really encouraged, inspired by the conversation among the three of us, between the two of you, as a representation of what I know to be the underlying conversation that is happening in so many corporate offices across the United States, across the world right now, as we all struggle to put right centuries, not just decades, centuries of injustice, and to address the inequity that exists, to give opportunity where we were given opportunity. One of the things I want to highlight that I just heard from Mike and Matt is, if you are a minority in this industry and you want someone to mentor you, you've got at least two advocates right here on the screen. I'll throw my hat in the ring. I coach dozens of entrepreneurs and industry founders as a part of my day-to-day work. It is a privilege and a joy, and there aren't enough. I don't see, at least in my world, as many as I would like, minorities, people of color, women who ask for help, who want to be mentored. I can tell you that Matt's experience, Mike's experience, is not a unique one, by having Tony Clifford, who also has mentored Abby Hopper, and many others, Jigger Shaw, who's mentored countless others in the industry, Danny Kennedy mentoring Emily Kirsch. The list goes on and on. I encourage you that if that is your desire, plug into our community, plug into the Suncast tribe. These two gentlemen are a part of it. Plug in to really pick up the phone. If you really want this influence in your life, and you put yourself out there, I know these two men, and they will answer the phone and they will help you. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for the courage and the intention by showing up here today. And thanks for showing up for your staff and for your team, and setting an example. Perhaps it's not, we're certainly not at the end of any of this road, and it's not perhaps a perfect example, but I'm encouraged by it, and I'm humbled and grateful for the two of you. And I hope that it serves as leadership and guidance for someone else who's watching this and has been asking themselves the same questions that are going on inside of your head. We've gotten this message out into the world.
Well, we got a long road to go, Nico, but I want to thank you for hosting this. This is an important conversation to have, and really all the participants that you have involved in this conversation over the next couple of days.
Yeah, me too, Nico. Thanks for using the platform to push out this message. And, listen, stay hopeful. We got a lot to stay hopeful about, have that uncomfortable conversation. And as you said, I speak myself, and I'm sure for Mike as well, I'm open to have that conversation. Would love the opportunity to help further somebody's career and provide them those resources that I was allotted along the way. So
absolutely. The last thing I'll just say is it's usually only uncomfortable once, and then after that, it becomes very comfortable.
All right, that's a wrap on today's conversation, Solar Warriors. But I do hope that you'll check out the other 2 for Tuesday episodes and let me know what you think of these shorter format discussions. You want more like this? You can find more than 200 episodes, resources, highlights from the discussions, along with social media links to each guest episode, book recommendations, and so much more over on the blog at mysuncast.com. And that's also where you'll find other ways to engage with the Suncast tribe, like subscribing to our weekly emails, or even joining the exclusive inner circle we affectionately refer to as the Guild. If you're on Spotify or iTunes, I so appreciate your rating and review so that others can also find Suncast more easily. A special thank you to our sponsors who help make this podcast possible. You can learn more about them at mysuncast.com/sponsor. Follow the links there for any offers we've discussed here today. Remember, you are what you listen to. Thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.